Angelo Defendis, Gravesend guy from Brooklyn, won the gloves in '53. And again, 1953, Golden Gloves, New York. That's a cauldron of tough and really, really sharp boxing. And at that time, that was one of, if not the most prestigious boxing tournament in the country.
He won the gloves in '53 with the greatest fighters in the world in that era, '53 to maybe '56. Well, I mean, you're talking about great fighters.
When he won the Golden Gloves, for God's sake, they had a banner across Avenue U. I have pictures, right? We got the picture.
He has a shot at going to the Olympic trials. Unfortunately, he breaks his hand. He was going to fight Floyd Patterson. And Patterson was legitimately nervous about fighting him. So one has to wonder what would have happened if he was able to get in there with Patterson.
You know who was raved about him? One of the greatest trainers in New York, Pete Mello. But everybody that was anything in boxing raved about this guy.
I didn't know too much about his pro career. Because he never, I'll be honest with you, he never really talked about it either. It wasn't like a bragger. He wasn't a phony at all. If he liked you, he liked you, and if he didn't, he didn't.
He was friends with Kamala Costas. He was. He used to work out together. He was close with him. I mean, he was a good, close friend of his. I think he even walked into the ring when he fought Durando. Lucchese was his trainer. Also he had an opportunity to be with Rocky Graziano, who he didn't want to go against Salika, being with him all those years.
He turns pro, gets out there. He's a huge puncher. Really can get out and can really lay the wood on guys.
When I seen him at the bag, I couldn't believe how hard he hit. Especially his right hand. He had a great right hand. Very hard puncher.
And he quickly ascends, including knocking out Durando on Christmas Eve, 1956, blows him out in the first round.
Davey Fell, refereeing. Two sharp rights and a left, and Durando is down. Ernie Durando down here in the first round at St. Nick's in New York. 7, he's up. Durando looks in trouble. Looks in tough shape as Defendos with 3 punches. And Durando is down again. Less than a minute remaining in round 1. 7, 8, 9, 10, and the fight is over.
I mean, he knocked out Durando in 1 round. I mean, he was a great prospect.
And Durando had somewhere in upwards of 80 professional fights, and he walks right through them. With that win, he lands in the top 10 of the light heavyweight division.
He had some great fights, some very impressive fights.
He gets a big showdown with Yvon Durrell, the Canadian. They fight at St. Nick's Arena in the city, and they go to a split decision. Defendis feels like he won the fight. A lot of people at ringside feel he wins the fight. Durrell uses that as a springboard to get in, and he eventually challenges Archie Moore for the light heavyweight championship.
Because I heard he was close to fighting Archie Moore. All I knew was Angelo from the neighborhood, Bath Beach, Golden Glove champ. And that was enough. And I looked up to him.
Defendis was looking to get that title shot against Archie Moore, and he was realistic about it. He knew that Moore was going to be a tough challenge for him, but he knew he would come in. He knew he would have a puncher's chance against the old mongoose, and unfortunately it just didn't materialize.
I always asked him what he thought of Marciano. He didn't think too much of him. Never really talked about him. I don't know why, but he said his favorite fighter that he liked was Roberto Duran.
Really?
He loved Duran.
That's interesting.
Yeah, he liked Duran. Because I think Duran reminded him of himself. I took him to Gleason's once, and he liked going to fights. He still liked going to fights, so he went there, and Bert Sugar was there. There was a intermission. I mentioned Carlos Ortiz. The guy's in the back waves his hand. So after the intermission, I go to him. I says, "Hey, I'm with somebody." I said, "You should mention him." you know. I said, well, he's oh yeah, really? Like, you know, he's a nice guy. Really? Why don't you write it down? What he was a Golden Gloves champ. I mean, very well respected guy, you know. You know, he deserves to be, be recognized, you know. So he says, okay, all right, give me the paper. I gave him the paper, and then during the second one, or intermission, or whatever, or before they fought again, we have somebody to mention, and he says his name is Angelo Defendis, fought in 1953, the Golden Gloves champ. You know, he mentioned some of his fights, and he says, "Will you please stand?" or whatever. He wouldn't stand, and I'm sitting next to him. He says, I move him, nudge his arm. Why don't you get it? He goes like this. He just puts his arm up like that, and you know, everybody's looking at him. You know, and then after they started fighting, he goes to me, "Did you tell him that?" Just like that. Did you mention that to him? I says, "No, I didn't say anything."
He grew up on Avenue. He was always into sports. He was good in, football and baseball. And he worked with his father. They were immigrants from Italy. My grandfather was a great guy. He worked, he bought buildings. He never had an education. And he worked like 20 hours a day, my grandfather. And he opened a fruit store, and that's where he had 3 sons. That's where they worked. Then he got into boxing at a young age, actually. He was very tough. He was strong. He was quiet, but class act. Oh, he used to tell me I ran the beach with my boots on 5 miles a day. With his, those big heavy boots. Yeah. Carmelo Costa, that was his good friend he used to train with. They used to train in my grandmother's basement. His brother, Dominic Defendis, was a heavyweight. He was strong.
They had a gym in Bath Beach. He trained fighters.
Well, I had great memories of Angelo. We would call it, when I wasn't going to Manhattan, I would work out at Bath Beach, and he was always there, and he trained me. We used to work together. He took a liking to me.
I know that he wanted to manage Johnny Turner.
I remember the gym. I was young. It was on Avenue. Johnny Barbero and his brother, they owned it, and he trained fighters there.
We were in martial arts with Lou Neglia. As you were moving along, he recommended we go to Bath Beach Bodybuilding. There's nothing like the footwork of a polished boxer. You got to learn that footwork, that balance, that movement.
Do you remember Angelo Defendis over there?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I liked him. I think he liked me. He knew my Uncle Albert. They were both on Avenue. And once he knew that, I think I got special treatment. We learned a lot from him. We learned a lot.
He was a well-known individual, very well respected. That's the key word. He was very well respected.
And he was with the good fellows. He was a Shylock. I met him in 1959. I think he was kind of close with Tommy Eberly because he was at the Garden that night too. The neighborhood that he lived in, I mean, he was just thought about as they couldn't have cared if he was an axe murderer, to be honest with you. He helped everybody. Anybody who had a problem and needed something, he was there for them.
People were afraid because he had that real tough look, but he really had a big heart, and he was a great guy.
He's one of the guys in a line of professional fighters that become made guys in organized crime and work for one of the 5 families. There's Johnny DiGilio, of course, the Chin, Vincent Gigante, but there's no question Defendis is the best of all of them. He got into the top 10 and was a legitimate contender.
He was a good fighter, my father. Yeah. He won the Golden Gloves, the Silver Gloves. I actually have them. Okay. He's like, when I do, I wear them every day. I never wore them because I didn't earn them, you know. He was the youngest. He was supposed to be a girl. But he was. Then he was a 10-pound baby boy. Wow. And he never cried. Like, that was his life, that he fought and won the Golden Gloves. He was so proud of that.
You know, he was in the other life, as well as his boxing and his athletic life, you know. But he didn't step out of bounds with the other life. I could just say it that way. He was very well respected, like I told you in the beginning, you know.
It was an interesting life. Even though he was in that life, He always did the right thing. He goes, I never did anything to anybody that didn't deserve it. If you needed help, you got it. He was very quiet, man. He wasn't a bragger or anything. But he was like famous, like in the neighborhood, because he was like, you know, a great fighter. And his legacy still lives on. He was a great guy. And they don't make people like that anymore. They really don't. This is from my daughter, who has passed away. Very sad, and she wrote this essay about him. He won the 1953 Golden Gloves middleweight crown. What a true champion he was in every aspect of the word. A tough, respected man with a hell of a left hook. A real man. I remember him telling me he ran every day on the sand at the beach in his steel-toed boots. He was a fighter. He walks around standing tall with confident stature and composure. Every day my grandfather, Angelo Defendis, clenched his golden gloves around his neck in admiration of himself. Now let me take a shot at trying to describe his chain. It was like no other. 2 golden gloves draped around his neck. They are not hollow but solid, not containing any spaces or gaps, a glistening gold chain that seems never-ending. The meaning behind those golden gloves is much more than just a knockout. It represents a piece of history, not only a piece of heredity, but a shield of honor and courage. When you place them around your neck and revamp into something and someone new, and for some reason you feel protected. Protected from the demented world around us and the chaos in our heads. I feel at peace just thinking of them. This is extremely ironic as they symbolize combat, conflict, and resolution. No dollar amount could put a price tag on this candle. It is so much more than a family heirloom. When I think of the golden gloves of my grandfather, especially my anxiety subsides. I have horrendous bouts of anxiety on a daily basis. It takes a lot for me to just feel comfortable and sane. My mind is like a continuous merry-go-round. When I experience these episodes, I put my hands on my chest and appreciate my beating heart. I am blessed beyond recognition and expression. Sometimes I don't value myself as much as I should, and I am constantly reminded by other people daily, but it doesn't seem to matter. But when I look at these gloves, a magical feeling transpires through my body. Everything that represents those gloves represent my grandfather. In 1953, he defeated Robert Bradley of the Department of Parks to win the championship. He compiled an 18-5 record as a professional boxer. I will never forget the night of my Sweet 16. I don't remember if it was before or after reading my candle ceremony, but it was an amazing moment. The DJ shut the music off and rolled down a screen and played his fight in front of the whole party. Everyone sat there and cheered as if it was a live show. The moment was so special to me because I know it was so important to him. Going back to the highest peak of your life in remembrance is a rush in itself. When I lost him ultimately to dementia, my life spiraled. I believe dementia developed from trauma to the head as a fighter. He lived until 81, but that was just long enough. His whole persona and being changed after my grandmother died 2 years prior. He was a father figure in my life, the #1 man since my father has been out of the picture my whole life. Now I think of those gloves and I carry him with me everywhere I go. When I need strength, I just look up and I wonder if he's looking down upon me. Is he proud of who I am? Jenna Queen.
That's very nice.
The time, 2 minutes and 37 seconds of the first round. The winner by a knockout, Angelo Defendis.